Corey Lockman has turned out to be my most inspirational guest so far, and the guest I've gone the longest amount of time since I've seen him last. But that's because he spends a large part of his time crisscrossing the globe, saving endangered species, working for wildlife protection solutions. Whether breeding white rhinos in South Africa, rescuing the plowshare tortoise of Madagascar, or saving the last few remaining Javan rhinos in Indonesia, Corey Lockman has dedicated his life to protecting those who don't have a voice for themselves, so that hopefully we will all be able to enjoy and appreciate these amazing animals for generations to come. I naively prepared for this interview, thinking Corey was just out in the bush of South Africa, tagging wild game, doing his best to reduce poaching while educating the local population. So I had no idea the depth of innovation and technology involved in protecting these endangered species. Wildlife Protection Solutions is using VR technology that will soon make zoos and encaged animals virtually obsolete. And they've developed cutting-edge software using body recognition technology that tracks everything from poachers to the overall health of the animals, all in a completely non-invasive way. Corey and his organization are not only doing all of this, but they've even created a way that we can each make a difference in an easy, yet incredibly impactful way. Listen to how a grandmother in Iowa, watching a live video feed on her phone, not only gets a peek at some amazing animals, but when she sees a poacher, a simple click of a button contacts local rangers in the field to go investigate the issue. This technology has already stopped over 200 poachers, and it just goes to show that although your money certainly helps, it doesn't take much for any one of us to make a difference, proving once again it's not that hard for each of us to do just a little bit more. And what a cool and fun way to have a meaningful impact, thanks to Corey and his team. Check out my most fascinating conversation with wildlife activist, tech guru, and a man who's literally changing the world, Corey Lockman. All right, man, I think we'll get rocking and rolling.
All right.
This is the Extraordinary Podcast, and my guest today is Corey Lockman.
How are you, buddy?
How's it going, man?
Very well, man.
So, once again, we're going to start off an Extraordinary Podcast with, man, how long has it been?
We were just kind of discussing this.
I think for you, I think we have the record. I think you are one of the people that I have gone the longest amount of time since I've seen last.
It's got to be, it would be probably the day we graduated, but then there was the 10-year reunion that we both went to. So
that we both vaguely are familiar with.
It's probably been 14 years now.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
14 to actually probably more than that. I get 18 years.
Yeah.
Good God, man.
And you have been up to some really, really cool stuff, man. I got to tell you, it's I had a little idea of what I thought you were doing with the work you're doing in Africa, but after today, I had no idea how in-depth and involved it all was, man. That's a fascinating thing. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you actually do.
So what I do is I work for a nonprofit called Wildlife Protection Solutions. We were founded in 2013, and what we do is we specialize in bringing technology to the conservation field. And one of the main things we do with that is integrating different field sensors into a central kind of command and control module. We also build analytics into that, so human recognition, animal recognition, vehicle recognition, and then it alerts you if there's issues. So, for instance, in Africa, what we would use it for is security and also animal maintenance. So for security, it would be for anti-poaching.
Right.
And you can use this hardware in remote applications where you require a GSM signal and not a built-out mesh network or Wi-Fi channel.
And explain to me what that is, a GSM network, you said?
GSM network is basically your cell phone towers.
Okay.
So it works on
Cellular.
a cell phone band.
Right.
Yeah. So the hardware, the cameras and things that get deployed will transmit a signal.
And those are like those wildlife cameras like you see like hunters and stuff, you like strapped to a tree sort of thing?
Correct. They are the wildlife cameras. A lot of them are some live video cameras, so they're not all just the trail cameras. And then there's different sensors, GPS tagged animals, assets, And we can bring all that into a central command and control module and see what's going on. It also allows us to monitor the health and well-being of the animals during droughts. So that's one aspect of what wildlife protection does. And then we also have the education piece. We film animals in virtual reality and bring that to people that won't be able to go to Africa and see it, to get them more involved in wildlife conservation. And then as a third aspect, we started all of this by breeding rhino in South Africa, which I oversee our African operations. So I'm in charge of our rhino breeding population, which sits on about 8,000 hectares in South Africa.
And what is a hectare?
A hectare is roughly 3 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and that would be, I want to touch on each one of those three, because each one of those three is a really compelling and interesting conversation. But I guess let's start with the original. Was the Rhino Conservancy, was that the first step in all of this? Was that kind of what got all this started to begin with for you?
Yeah, so our founding director, both of our founding directors, Sue Thompson and Dave Widener, and our executive director, Eric Schmidt, they wanted to work on species that didn't have as much recognition. So, there's a lot of conservation groups doing elephant research and elephant protection and lions and other cats.
All those big animals everybody's familiar with.
Exactly, and primates. And so, there wasn't a lot of groups. There are a lot of groups doing rhino, so I don't want to say that there aren't, but rhinos are extremely endangered. And, the white rhino, there's 5 species. White rhino sits at 20,000 roughly.
That's the most endangered, correct?
Actually, the Javan rhino, they've only know about 40 in existence in the world, and that's found in Southeast Asia.
Is that the one you were talking about? Yeah, that's in Indonesia or something like that. Yeah, I didn't even know they
that
had
one.
Rhinos.
And the Sumatran rhino is roughly 200 of those left in the wild.
Wow.
So those are the two most endangered out of the 5 species of rhino. Then you have the Indian one-horn, then the black rhinoceros, which is found in South Africa, and then also the white rhinoceros, which is found in Africa also. And we breed white rhino. So we have a breeding population. Now, along with other animals, we have hyena and different kinds of, we have leopard and giraffe and things like that on our property. But
rhino is the primary focus?
Yes, and we started that because we wanted to help rhino more. Now we work across all species. I have a plowshare tortoise project in Madagascar.
We were talking about that earlier. Yeah, that's really
Madagascar is a rough place, brother. Rough place. Out of all the places I've been, even in Southeast Asia, Madagascar is a tough place. They've burnt down a lot of that country, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's what makes it so
it's
tough.
Extremely impoverished.
Yeah. Well, and obviously being an island to itself like that gives it its own set of challenges as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that one that's the toughest places that you've had to go so far?
One of them, yeah. To get to where we had to go, where these plowshare tortoise are, and it's a little conservancy where roughly, I want to say 3/4 or less than that, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of the population of plowshare tortoise remain in one enclosure right now that's 30 meters by 30 meters.
Wow.
So there's like 160 in there. Yeah, and a couple of nonprofits that we partner with are working in that. So Turtle Conservancy and Doral. Doral is the main one, doral.org.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that sums up that kind of how we got started with breeding the rhino, and our whole intention, by the way, to get back to the point, was breeding rhino, build the population. Rhino have a long gestation period, roughly 2 years. So our hope was to breed them. Once we hit a good carrying capacity, we would donate those to lands that have been wiped out of them for poaching.
Almost
so that
like
they
a repopulation sort of thing.
Exactly, and we do completely wild breeding. There is no intensive breeding unless we have to feed during drought. It's the only time any kind of unnatural anything comes into it, when we have to give them feed.
Well, yeah, and we were actually talking about that earlier. That was so neat about what you're doing on all aspects of the program that you guys are doing. It's keeping it natural and recreating that natural habitat and that natural balance. Is what we were talking about earlier. Keeping that ecosystem in check so that everything has an opportunity to thrive. Because sometimes those good intentions could actually lead to negative consequences from overpopulation and some other challenges like that.
Well, definitely. We were talking about hunting, and, you asked me, and typical question, people always ask me where I stand being conservation, and there's the hunting aspect. And, I don't choose sides. I work with hunters that are very loyal conservationists. They have to mitigate land, and you'd be foolish to think that any reserve that tells you they don't do any hunting or anything, They're wrong. The national parks even have to do it. I mean, you have to control populations because humans were idiots and built fences, and that was the point of that conversation.
Right.
And when you build fences, you have to mitigate because you have flora and fauna that are affected by it.
Yeah, you kind of have to undo some of the damage that you caused.
Exactly, and you got to hopefully recreate the most natural environment.
Right, and try to get it to that homeostasis point. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about you personally. When was it that you kind of found this to be your calling, or was there an aha moment for this with you, or how did all this kind of come to be for you personally?
You know, I had started doing some volunteer work. You know, Sean McHugh, you know Sean, he was one of our buddies, has started volunteer experiences where they would go.
Stay strong out there, Sean. We're thinking about you, brother.
Yeah, buddy.
He's on a bit of a journey right now.
Yeah, he is. And, you know, I did some work for that nonprofit with Habitat for Humanity after Katrina.
Nice.
Then I went back to New Orleans and worked with another friend of ours, Dustin Fleiner, for a year. And then I got an opportunity to move, and that was in New Orleans, and it was bank-owned property, a for-profit thing. But at the same time, you were cleaning up.
You're still doing some good.
6 years later, Katrina homes that had been left. So that was a big deal. And then, you know, so I've always wanted to do something. And for me, animals were always the most important thing. I've just always had a spot. I think human causes get a lot of credit, and as rightfully so. We're humans. It's you know, we have feelings for one another. You have children. You have things that you assimilate to. For me, I care a lot about animals. You know, we're all creatures, and we need to do something to help them because they don't have a voice. And
that was the big thing I was thinking of.
Yeah, and to give them a voice, it was always key to me. And I got offered an opportunity. I'd moved here 9 years ago. And I started working at a software company.
I guess we should start off with where we even are located right now. Where are we?
Welcome to Denver, Colorado, man.
Good old Denver, man.
Yeah, beautiful.
Love it.
I got some mountains back there.
And we got the weather to cooperate just long enough for us to get to do this outside and enjoy this beautiful weather.
To be honest, it's better than the office. The echo was a little bit outstanding. So
yeah, we were trying to work through some sound issues.
We tried to do this at my office. That didn't work so well. I got involved with a for-profit company. The owner of the private owner who doesn't have a position but funded that software company, he and I became friends, and I found some things in the company auditing it, his for-profit, that really helped him out, and he wanted to start a nonprofit, and I was his first employee outside of the executive director. So I helped start the nonprofit, and I was fortunate, you know, always wanted to do something like this. It isn't the most fortunistic opportunity.
Yeah, you're not going to get rich.
You're not going to get rich, but you're going to get heart-filled rich. But you're going to get mind
wealth
rich
in a whole different way.
Your body, your well-being. Although I've been injured quite a bit in Africa, but
we're going to get into that too. We're going to talk about some of those stories.
At the same time, I mean, the way I feel knowing that I'm doing something besides sitting behind a desk is. And knowing that looking at the animals, even when I see dead ones, and we have to go and I'm at an autopsy of some kind, it's depressingly sad, but it's also, you know, you're doing your best for the remaining ones, and that's what you're trying to stop. So, you know, yes, it has extremely down moments, but again, going back to giving them a voice, if no one does it, then they all die, and that's the way I look at it.
And it's just like anything else in life. If you keep taking all those little baby steps and keep doing just that little extra bit and keep focused on that primary goal, then you do start to see some gains. And I think one of the biggest gains that you guys have seen is this technology piece. This technology that you guys have partnered with a for-profit company that was able to start this organization, and then the vision of the nonprofit, and then to bring those two together into that virtual reality. Mm-hmm. I mean, now you're kind of dealing with cutting-edge technology, and you're dealing with something that's completely outside of that, but yet it impacts it in such a dramatic way. Tell us a little bit more about the virtual reality that I got to see, the program that I got to see today.
When we're in the bush working and donating hardware and building infrastructure so that we can have communications that allow us to catch poachers, we do have time to actually see animals and, you know, part around where we work when we're putting up towers or we're installing cameras that are remote and all these different sensors. You're around the animals. So we started realizing, like, you know, VR was starting to become bigger and bigger, and it's something that obviously continues to grow. Exactly. And, you know, it was kind of terrible, and then it got kind of good again, and now we're in that kind of good, but it's not booming. I mean, it's a young it's a young person's thing. It's hard for people our age and older. We've even tested these theories to stay in them for long periods of time.
Interesting.
So our clips are very short.
Yeah, so you have to manage the time frames.
Yeah, so we bought a bunch of cameras that animals could destroy that do VR filming, and a lot of animals have eaten them, and we filmed it because they spit it out. And
yeah, and tell us, describe that camera because it's really cool.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different cameras, but
the one that I saw that you
the
showed
little
me,
GoPro Fusions, two lenses
those.
back to back. They're kind of waterproof and easy, not as expensive as our really nice multi-rigs. So those we just can get rid of, and they film above 4K.
Yeah.
So when you marry them and stitch them, you've got something that's like 5.2K.
That's incredible detail.
And we don't even have goggles that can see that
Right,
clearly.
the goggles aren't even good.
And the animals, I mean,
yet.
I mean, it's like being there. And there's no humans. We try and cut all the humans out if there are. We drive the vehicles behind and put the cameras out and let them walk and mingle with it and, play with their cubs if there's cubs and other animals. So we try and make it as natural as possible.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the things that struck me the most was that, like, it really did feel so natural.
Yeah.
And especially with it being three-dimensional and there's an animal that's creeping up behind your back,
yeah.
and you turn around and all of a sudden it's there.
Or it steps over you like the giraffe
it comes over
or
the
something.
top. That was a real mind bender for me, man. That threw me for a loop big time.
You should see the kids. And it's like, kind of briefly when we were talking about this, like, the VR is a neat experience, and it's for everyone. Like, we have a YouTube channel. It's free. You can do whatever you want with them.
And what is that YouTube channel?
I think it's Wildlife Protection Solutions.
We'll have a link to it on the website.
Thank you. And, what it is the ability for everyone to be able to use that and show people. And there's also some education audio to it that'll tell you a little bit about the animals and any crises they're having.
Well, yeah, and that one I got to see, it gave like a little snippet, and it was like giving you all the information as it was panning down that monolith. It was really cool. And the way that I'm learning all this video stuff, so I'm fascinated by all the video editing.
Yeah.
That really played well into it. It all made part of that virtual experience even more like engaging and engrossing and
it's really
captivating.
Cool.
Really captivating is the best.
So the North Carolina Zoo uses our film stuff. They have a VR now they have a VR room, and you can go in there and it's all of our VR stuff that we film.
That's great.
So,
and what a great way to kind of at least supplement the zoo and hopefully at some point maybe even replace the zoo.
I mean, look, you're never going to replace the zoo because most of the animals there you can't rehabilitate.
Right, you're not going to be able to reintroduce into the wild. Sure.
I wish a lot of zoos, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones. Some literally take animals out of the wild and cage them, and I think that's an infuriating, terrible situation.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff.
If you're going to save them from circuses and other people, private owners or other sanctuaries that have closed, and they're used to being in a small area, then that's what you should do. But not to get off topic here.
I digress.
I digress because it gets frustrating to me. But, good zoos and good operators that care about conservation are trying to give people an experience that's natural. Yeah. And we should appreciate that. And this main thing in what we're trying to do here, and this is, we don't do a lot of fundraising. We just don't. If people donate to us, they donate and it goes into the field. We want to be able to offer things open for everyone, because if more people get involved in conservation, if you learn more about the issues that are facing our flora and our fauna, not just animals, I mean, our everything, our ecosystem, you make a difference. And if you can get people at a young age so that next generation cannot be as foolish as our generations and the older ones, that is extremely valuable, because they're the ones that are going to suffer, and they need to be able to fix it.
They're going to be the ones that miss out potentially on some of these experiences.
And it's not an over dramatization. I'm there
it's not.
In Africa. I'm in Southeast Asia. Yeah. I see what's happening. Just because we see it on a TV here and you don't get to experience it in person, you should experience what's already happened in the States. I mean, look at what we did with the revolution of industrialization. We've pushed out and we don't really have animals left here.
There's not a lot of them.
Crazy.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it has been kind of cool to see a lot of the bears coming back around.
It is really neat, man.
They're popping
bears
up all over the
everywhere.
place. Yeah,
My problem with them is they're shooting the hell out of them because they keep coming into towns.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I guess they're really not endangered or protected anymore.
And the wolves. Wolves are doing good.
What is the one thing that you, since you're out there, you were talking about you're out there firsthand, you get to see this stuff firsthand. What is it that you would want people to know, or maybe there's a misconception out there that people kind of see because we see it on TV and we see the generic commercials or whatnot. From somebody that's out there in the field, what is it that you want people to know, and how can they have an impact themselves?
What I'd like most people to know, and this is generalized across all nonprofits, and it is one of the number one problems that I feel like nonprofits and everyone that doesn't think that they can do things because they think that donations are the only way that you can help. Okay? And this is a fundamental problem. You have great people out there that they feel like they can't get involved. They can't do anything because they don't have money. Or they want to give it $10 to church and that's all they can give to. Well, guys, that's not all you can do. And this isn't to talk up my nonprofit, but a bunch of other nonprofits do this. We have volunteers that monitor cameras for places in Africa, okay? You can freely sign up, and you will be able to log in to our secure website and monitor cameras and catch poachers. We had 200 poachers caught in Africa in the last 3 years on our solutions that we've put in, over 200.
How about that?
130 plus of those came from citizen volunteers. Old ladies that just sit on their phones at night, catch it, because you got to remember the time difference. So a lot of these reserves and parks, national parks, don't have a lot of people, and they don't have bandwidth to monitor things. They need to be out in the field. So if you're sitting there, and it's an 8-hour time difference, 12 hours in Southeast Asia for the most part, you're at your computer desk working, you could have that on your phone, and if something pops up, you send a message in to our team, and we go bust some poachers in Africa. That costs nothing. There's no donation. You are a citizen volunteer, and that is what more things can be, and you can make a difference. And spread the word. Take our videos. Go into a high school or a elementary school or your own children. Talk to them. Show them the videos online. Go to other videos. Nat Geo. I don't care who it is. I'm not propping up myself. I'm propping up the world.
Cause,
and make a difference. If it's cancer, go walk for Susan G. Coleman. My sister had cancer, and my mom and my family donates a lot of their resources to breast cancer research. And they don't necessarily give a lot to my nonprofit, and I get that. They care about the human cause, but you can make differences everywhere. And I think people get hidden behind this mask of money. And I got to do things for money.
Or I'm just this little person over here by myself in Podunk, wherever
what am I gonna do?
What can I do for something in Africa?
Yeah.
And what a great and amazing way to do that. And that's a perfect segue. So we talked about the 3 segments of the nonprofit. We talked about the saving
security software.
And then we talked about the virtual reality. So now we're talking about the security software.
Yep.
So let's go into more detail, because this part to me was the most fascinating, how this has grown and what it has grown into. The original thought was even just to stop poachers, but now what you've done with this technology and utilized it for science and for a lot of these other things. Tell us about that.
What we developed and what you saw at my office was WPSWatch.org. And that is a security kind of command and control console where we've built analytics into still imagery and some live video that allows us to do a threat assessment in the bush for that. And so what that allows is us to be able to, once an image comes in, we can run it through an analytical software. And that will allow us to determine a threat. It also will allow us to check and see if the animals, during a drought, if you're showing rib cage, do they look in trouble? Are we not seeing them as often? So it gives us eyes in very remote parts and allows us not to be inundated with motion sensor detections of a wind blowing the bush. So
and I think that's fascinating that the technology has come so far that not only are you able to, see, obviously, the difference between like animal and person, but if that animal is getting too skinny, like you're actually able to track and monitor these animals in such a non-invasive way and yet still provide for them in a way that's probably more beneficial than you could in an invasive way, really, because you're able to see so much.
Very true. The old method was on certain kind of trail cameras and other even cameras that they relied on for video and power consumption. So we also build our own solar power supplies that actually functionally work with different kinds of hardware. The biggest problem is because it can't transmit the old ways, they would have to go pull SD cards or go pull transmission from a DVR type setup, which caused a delay in any kind of response. It's not real time. You got to go take care of it. You got to change batteries. You got to do stuff. We need full functionality uptime, just like a controlled environment at your office that has camera monitoring,
regular security
and
cameras.
Fence sitters, and a lot of the poaching these days is supplied by people who are on the inside. I would guess 70%.
No kidding.
Of all poaching jobs start with someone working on the inside. Either that's a security guard that's getting paid off.
Right.
That's a cleaning staff at a lodge within one of the places. It could be a patrol. It could be even a ranger or a bad manager. Anyone's tempted by money.
Well, sure,
the guys will get to. It used to be a socioeconomic problem. Very poor people being offered big money by a Chinese syndicate to go poach something that's been in their backyard. You can't blame them if you're going to be able to fund your family for 10 years.
Right.
Now it's like the drug dealer. They have syndicates in Johannesburg and these other places, Mozambique. The Tanzanians would come over and poach out all the elephants. I work, all over Africa. It's a different scenario. There's a lot of wars going on, when there's insurrection within a government or a dictator loses out and there's a change, people are dying everywhere and they need money.
Chaos, yeah.
They need money, so they'll go slaughter the animals, sell them for nothing, for hide and all these things. It's not necessarily going to the Chinese market where you make the most money. They're just killing everything.
They're just trying to survive.
And so, but now it's dirty, it's dangerous. It's everyone's got to be.
Well, and it's
armed.
evolved too. The whole system and the whole situation has evolved quite a bit.
Yeah. And it's dirty. I mean, we're losing space. That's just the
running out of land. Yeah,
we're running out of land.
The land is finite, and our population is not.
And we want more.
Yeah.
I mean, humans, we have an insatiable appetite for more stuff.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
So tell me about, I know you've had some crazy stories. Tell me about some of what's one of the scariest moments for you in Africa?
Man, I was working at a 19,000 hectare park, and big five, so elephants, leopard, lion,
all that big
Cape
game.
Buffalo, and rhino. And so the biggest game you can get, and the most deadly, they call it the 5 most deadly animals. So
that sounds about
basically,
right.
we were out there, and I had gotten frustrated, and we were putting up a tower, building a mesh network, and I oversee the operations, and I had an engineer
cell tower.
there. Yeah, no, a actual mesh network tower. So we were building a Wi-Fi channel from the front of the property to the back, so that we could install some live video feed that would channel back. Because this is a high density, there's a 1 million person township. Townships are what you consider the poverty towns in South Africa. And so that borders this park. So there's just a ton of poaching. And a lot of it's bushmeat poaching, not elephant, rhino. It's more
They're just trying to eat meat to survive.
Eat and sell meat. But there is rhino poaching in there, and elephant and lion, and they get caught in snares. So these animals get injured. So they might come out for bushmeat poaching, but when they put snares in, and, I'll show you that example, but when they put those snares in, the other animals get hurt by them.
Sure, because it catches in it. It doesn't
wraps
discriminate.
Around their leg, and then they're stuck tied to a tree until something or they can break it off. Elephants, not so much. Lion, cats, all the time.
Right.
And that's a problem. It sucks because dealing with that and then dealing with the wound, you can't constantly treat the animal because you can't sedate
It's wild, yeah.
Well, and you can't constantly sedate the
it.
animal.
Right, yeah,
so
I didn't think about it from that regard.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it's that dynamic. And so I was putting up a tower. Make a long story short, putting up a tower. I got frustrated. It's our last day. We had to fly out the next day. Things had not gone well. Our job estimate problem. And so we had a lot of hang-ups, and it was the last day, and I got frustrated, and the tower was down, and I ran a blade across one of the bars all the way across, and it tore across the back end of my hand, ripping it all open, and the tendons, and I had I don't feel these two fingers right here that well
and in the middle of Africa with the
and I'm 2
65,
hours away from any. I'm an hour just from even a road, like a gravel road,
much less any medical attention.
Then I'm another hour and a half to get there, so. I'm passing out trying to get to the car. Blood's everywhere, and I get in the car, and then my buddy drives me, and finally get to the hospital. I lost a lot of blood, and I'm like, delusional, but get it all wrapped up. And I had to fly the next day, but I actually got back to work 2 hours later, but I was like in this hand cast, and
sure, yeah,
had to fly out. And of course, we didn't finish the project and went down here, but that was just one of the most not thinking I'm going to die tragic moments. The African tick bite fever. I thought I was going to die with that. This was more of I'm in the middle, out here with nothing, animals, and I got to get to a hospital. And you're in Africa. You don't even know what kind of hospital you're going
what
to.
Kind
let's
of quality
be honest.
You're get when you get there.
But the care was the best.
A lot of open-ended.
To the misconception on things, the care was amazing. It cost, for the entire sewing, treatment, and medication, $230. So even in the most impoverished, 28% unemployment, you can get quality medical care. But for some reason here in the United States, you can't get it for healthcare. So
telling you what,
blows my mind. But that's just another story. I think some of the most tragic stories are the things we see.
Yeah,
the death of the animals.
I was going to ask you. That was my next question.
Yeah.
What was one of the sadder or more depressing moments for you that made it kind of tough?
One of the worst, I was at King Game Reserve, and we went over there, and there was an autopsy of a female rhino who had just given birth, and she had been poached. And she had sat there for 2 days before we found her. And so the baby, we tracked the footprints. It kept coming back to the mother who was dead, and the horn removed, blood, insects had already started eating away at it. And, the government isn't the greatest in some aspects on their autopsy, but they have to register it, so they come out. And to get through the epidermis of a rhino, it's an inch thick. And you have to witness all this, but the worst is you're trying to find the baby because it's only one rhino per female. They're not going to go assimilate to another mother, which this one actually tried to do. And after 4 days, they found it. We helivac'd it out. We're able to get it the care and foster in a orphan rhino sanctuary, and it's doing very well. But it was very tragic for me. It wasn't the first death I'd seen. It was the first one I'd seen where the baby kept kind of coming back, and you knew it, and you could sense it, and you're looking for it, and there's nothing you could do because it's a vast area, and it's scared of you, and it's we just killed its mother. All it thinks is these humans and shot and there wasn't much going on. It's not like the government's out there treating this as some murder case. And in some aspects, things are very good, and some they're very bad. And that was very tragic. To see all the snares in Uganda that the Ugandan Wildlife Authority and UCF took me to, that was very tragic. I mean, in 4 years, they filled up 8 shipping containers of snares and spears and bear claw traps that have injured their own people that are rangers. And this is in a 400,000 hectare park. And I mean, it's amazing what it is that actually happens. And to witness that stuff, it's just tragic. Yeah. It's very tragic.
To see it going on that kind of scale can be really tough to deal with, I'm sure. Yeah. Can be a little bit depressing. What was one of the most rewarding experiences for you out there?
Probably getting that baby.
Finding it and getting it. That makes perfect. Seeing that it's doing well now and knowing that you saved a life. At the end of the day,
catching some of the poachers and just getting them to understand that cameras are there, they're being watched, so lessening the load on certain national parks and reserves that we go into, having that enjoyment of knowing that, they've gone from 5 episodes a year that they know of. I mean, these are vast areas.
Some that don't happen that you don't know about.
To 2 and know that you've had a helping hand in that.
Awesome.
to working with other nonprofits, the WWF, and our friends at even for-profit companies that take an active hand. I think it's amazing. I think working with children is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, giving the kids opportunities to see and do things, it's great.
Well, educating them with that VR resource, I think, is going to be really incredible, because that's just such a neat experience. And having gone to plenty of zoos,
the kids, I mean, you got to go to the zoo.
Because with having 5 kids, I don't have any choice in the matter. But like, you know, you go to the zoo and they're all, you know, the animals, they're not there to entertain you. They're tucked in the shady spot. They're kind of not really trying to be engaged. But when you do that VR experience and they're in their own natural habitat, they are engaged. And a lot of times they engage with the camera sometimes, like you were saying. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, obviously there's nothing that's quite as rewarding as seeing something in real life. But the value that you get out of that VR experience compared to the impact it has on the animals, man, it's just incredible. And I say that because I guess my next question was what do you think the future for all this is, and what's the long-term solution to some of this poaching and stuff that you've got going on? Or is there one?
Yeah, you know.
Or do you think it's something you'll just always have to deal with?
This question gets asked to me quite a bit, and I could give you the nonprofit answer.
Right.
Which would
I'm more interested in the Corey answer.
Kind of stick to, yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people are. I think people think that I dramatize it. And it's almost like the, Avengers movie. Everyone keeps saying, like, I'd kill off half the population, and we would start there to give us the best chance.
Hey, the same thought crossed my mind a few times,
But I mean, dealing with what we're dealing with, you know, we're trying to mitigate losses. We mitigate losses by doing our best to preserve what we have and try and keep up with the decimation of populations by keeping them pretty level. That's what we're doing. The problem with it is with land loss and with large mammals, that doesn't go hand in hand. You know, large mammals need space. Yeah. And when you clog that space up, whether it's giant floating oceans of trash and whales' stomach being filled to them. I mean, you know, that they need a lot of space, and when they don't know what they're even putting in there because they open their mouths and take in a lot of water and they take in whatever comes with it and hopefully excrete it, but they don't get a chance to because those things don't break down. Right. Same thing with what we do. You know, there's a lot of good things happening in Africa and Southeast Asia where people are dropping fences. They're trying to preserve what they still have and open up more space so that we're not blocking it. But at the same time, fundamentally, you know, islands are shrinking. Water's rising. So Southeast Asia will be a challenge. I mean, you know, Jakarta
certainly Southeast
now
Asia
wants to move its capital to Borneo and Balikpapan.
Because of the sea levels?
Yeah, because of the sea levels, and it can't sustain that many people. So they're looking at doing that, and they just came out, I think, a week ago with that. Well, I work in Borneo, and
I was going to say,
it's one of the largest islands left on the planet, and it has some of them
huge wildlife population.
Huge wildlife. Well, they've sold a lot to mining. That's where we were trapping one Sumatran rhino, and it was sold to. It used to be a palm oil plantation, which palm oil's terrible. It's in everything. You all do it, but still sucks. Palm oil.
But I digress once again.
I digress. And now it's a gold mine, and they were very nice. This Chinese company didn't want to harm any animals, but the Sumatran rhino would hurt someone if it was challenged.
Of course.
So we were trying to get out. We were working with WWF Indonesia. They eventually trapped it, moved it. The first one they did like that, it died.
Save it.
But they're losing land hand over fence, and now you're going to go put the capital of Indonesia.
Yeah, it's going to move a couple million people right into it.
I mean, so you know, for me, it's kind of one of those things, like, we have to do more. I have to do more. It's a daily challenge for me, you know. I love to eat things that I probably shouldn't eat. I love to use things that I don't, you know, I use to eat. I live in Colorado, so I drive a 4x4. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Should I even be driving this much? I mean, I'm out of the country 3 years of the month. But I should be doing more. Recycling isn't all that can be done.
We can all be doing more.
That's the problem. It's lessening the footprint and then actually taking an active approach. The wildlife around you is very important, and not needing as much of their space to maintain your own space. Yeah. Like, give back, you know. And we don't need more cattle. You know, we need more natural species.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, get it back. It goes back to that homeostasis we were talking about before, getting that natural balance.
Well, and it's like you had to find, you know, what path you wanted to take. I mean, you could talk about that a little bit, which was the basis of you wanting to do something that kind of made a difference and bring these stories to light that you've done so far, and the more you want to do. And that same kind of willingness to want to do something that is a little bit better in life than maybe doing what you used to do or whatever.
Well, we were talking about it before. It's kind of once you get to that point where you can kind of look outside yourself a little bit and find some deeper purpose, and I don't want to say a higher calling, but maybe just a deeper purpose. Maybe that's just a better way of saying it. And it doesn't have to be religious, but it can be a little bit spiritual, I think. And it's certainly, I think what we've both found is it's very rewarding.
It is.
And the fulfillment that you get far outweighs the monetary value that you would place on doing something else where you wouldn't get that same kind of reflective point, I guess, maybe, or that same kind of inflection, maybe.
Yeah, and for you, let me ask you a question. With that rewarding sense, and I mean, this goes back to that last question you just asked. With that rewarding sense you get, if everyone feels that, if everyone starts feeling that same way, and please, tell me a little bit more about that feeling, but that feeling that you felt, just like I know I've been there, when you feel that, if everyone starts feeling like that and it takes out a little bit of that selfishness, then I think there's a hope to change the issues going that full circle, because I think we don't internalize. We're so busy figuring out self, like
we're
you
so
were saying.
narcissistic.
So narcissistic.
Just by nature, right?
Yeah, and that narcissistic mentality, and when we have that, we don't think outside for more help, so therefore we don't change things. And we have to start changing ourselves for the rest of the world, because, again, goes back to giving the animals a voice. We have to speak for them. The flora, the fauna, so not just the animals, all the things we have to start doing a better job with, and that starts with self.
Well, what was that thing? We had that quote earlier we were talking about. It was, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It was really neat getting to spend some time with Jason and the Hope Through Soap crowd, because you definitely get that firsthand experience of exactly what you get to get when you're in Africa, but you get to do it on an easier micro scale. But yeah, I mean, when you're down there and you're talking to people and you're engaged and you get that rewarding experience, man, you can't walk away from that experience and be depressed. No. You can't walk away from that experience and be thinking about yourself, or you automatically walk away from that experience with empathy and understanding and compassion for another human being that there's no way I'm sure there's other ways you can get it, but that's one of the best ways I know to get it. And then when you get that empathy and that compassion, I think you're able to relate to people more, you're able to have a better understanding, and just be a better human. I think that's kind of what we're all trying to work on at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you're dead right, Nathan. When you called me up, I was like, what, you hit me up on Facebook. You're like, hey, your job's cool. I'm doing this. And I was like, if you make it out here, if I'm in Atlanta, let's do this. And, I saw Jason's segment. I watched that and that you had with him and just some of the other things. I mean, there's good people, and everyone has that ability, and it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, that's what's so great about it is, well, and I think that's kind of, the theme of the show, or the theme of the podcast a little bit, is to have that fulfillment in your life. And I think that it's all about, like, talking to you and talking to Jason, these people, it's figuring out how to find that fulfillment. And it can be, you don't have to go feed the homeless, you don't have to save the rhinos in Africa, but you got to find something that is bigger than just you. Yeah. You got to find something that's more than just your little 24-hour peripheral vision. Once you look outside yourself and you start worrying about those other things, that's when those things that you need to get taken care of in yourself get taken care of. That once you look outside yourself, the self gets seen about. And it just happens time and time again.
One of the most rewarding things I've ever done, and it's funny, I was drinking a lot at the time, but was bartending. I loved it, the connection with people. I met a man who was dying of Alzheimer's and, Lou Gehrig's disease, my apology. He was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, and he and his wife came into my bar in the middle of the day up on the rooftop in Charleston, and I just talked to them, and he had a few months left, and he was talking on his little tracheotomy voice thing, and he was telling me, and they were like, we're just seeing as much as we can left. So they were traveling everywhere. They were in their 70s and
packing it in, sharing
that moment with them. I loved it, man. Yeah. I loved it, and that that took me full circle to all these building houses that I used to do and all the other jobs I've had. And, now I get to kind of do the same thing, talk to these animals and have them talk to me and talk to you and figure out a solution to it. I don't have a perfect answer, but,
Well, I think the best answer that you have is the example that you're setting. And like I said, I knew that you were working for the Conservancy and protecting the wildlife and all that. But what's fascinating to me is how you've taken that to this next level with this technology.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is a game changer. What you guys are doing now is laying the groundwork that is going to affect populations of animals for the next 100 years. And quite frankly, it's going to affect millions of people because they're still going to be able to see these animals. Because I think what you're doing and the way that you're going about it with this technology is allowing people to continue to have that access for generations. And that's, I think, the biggest risk that we have is losing that access, losing that knowledge and that, like with those VRs, to be able to experience that firsthand. And you guys are doing it, man. You guys are I mean, it didn't really hit me until today, until right before we started this interview, like what a dramatic impact that's going to have on the long term. And that's what I've been thinking a lot about is like, how do you have impact on the long term? And, not just 10 years from now, but 100 years from now. What's the legacy that you're going to leave? How are you going to be remembered 100, 200 years from now, if you're remembered at all? And if you can be remembered for 200 years from now for doing something like this, I mean, that's the answer. I mean, and it's not about being remembered, I guess, but it's about the difference that you're making and the impact that you're able to leave. That's huge.
One animal lives. If, one species can kind of continue a little bit further and give it a longer chance, then, man, I could die happy and be totally fine with it. For me, I wish we were sitting in our property in Africa and we were doing this interview, and I'm hopeful we can, because the reality is
that's the next
to
trip.
See it,
Yeah.
to experience it, and to understand back to that socioeconomic issue in a lot of these very poor countries, to get that understanding also.
Get that figured out.
Is very real. And doing this is very fortuitous, like I said, but at the same time, you do have to be real. My partnerships with other nonprofits and even for-profits that help do so much. Here's Mike Howard. He is a friend of ours. You might not remember him. I played football with him a year younger than us at high school. He started donating to our nonprofit a year ago, monthly. And we don't even have a lot of donations because we're privately funded, but he just wanted to help out, and, he cares about animals. And he did that, and, that's someone I haven't talked to him in as long as, hell, I saw you at our 10-year. I haven't
didn't
seen
see him at that.
I haven't seen him since high school, and
Yeah,
we
so
were a year
literally
older,
30 years probably.
And that's something he chooses to do, and hits me up, and he's like, hey, I heard about your nonprofit. That's amazing stuff. That's a financial thing, and Mike's doing so much, and I believe he's a vet, if I'm not mistaken, so he cares, and he does a ton of stuff on his own. But those little things that from people you don't even know, it's amazing, and it's helpful. And
it sustains you. Yeah, it really does.
It sustains these animals. It doesn't, it's not even me. It's an amazing thing, and goes back to what you're saying, making that little bit of difference. I don't know if I'm making a ton. It's everyone coming together. So the Mike Howards, the you interviewing, the WWFs that we partner with, the people that really want to know more about conservation, work within it, and come together as a team, so it's not so many variable solutions that no one wants to partner. Because I know nonprofits that don't, this is mine. This is what I do. Don't come in here. And you're like,
this is my space.
I'm literally a nonprofit trying to help you.
Right.
And they throw up roadblocks, and you're like, okay, that's the weirdest thing in the world. Aren't we all in this together?
Yeah.
And they do that. And to find good partners that just care about doing stuff and not some game.
Right.
We care. It's boots on the ground. It's everything. And
grassroots, it's all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And it's funny how that works. You don't expect that.
No.
It's from a nonprofit kind of thing. But
that's my money. They're going to take money from me.
Yeah, you run it, and it's so funny how they can be kind of territorial and some of that kind of stuff that you deal with. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Any books that you're reading? Favorite books? Anything?
Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind, which I told you I just finished that literally, I think, last month. So I've not picked up another book. Don't
That's
sure
all
my
right,
mom will
that's
see this. This will be great. But
Mama Lockman gonna come
I love
for you.
that book, man.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It takes you through a history of time based on facts, and it's a history book basically, but it walks you through in how we got to the point we are today.
And tell me the author again.
It's Yuval Harari, I believe.
I'll get a picture and put it on the website.
Butchering the name.
Podcast.
Yes, but I believe it's Yuval Harari or something like that. I'm sorry about that. If he ever saw this, my apologies. Yeah. Hell of a book, though.
That's awesome. You So when are you headed back to Africa? When's your next trip?
So I've got to go to Uganda in October. So September I've got to go to South Africa, and Uganda and Mozambique in October. We have another team heading back to Indonesia this month, but for me, those will be my next travel dates. So I'll try and get in probably another month of travel before the end of the year.
Cool.
And then
that's usually what you do, about a month or so?
Take off Christmas, come to Atlanta, see you, buddy.
There you go. Yeah, come see the rounds.
Yeah, I got to see my mom.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got the whole circuit to do down south for sure. What do you do when you're not doing this? How do you spend your free time?
Well,
because you don't have a lot of it. I mean,
my old lady loves fish, so I go to a lot of fish concerts, and I don't.
And when we say fish concert, fish, you might want to clarify that a little bit.
Fish is a band. Phish. Concerts at Red Rocks.
Yeah.
A lot of hiking. I'm up in the mountains a lot. I love riding snow.
Excellent. Yeah.
So wintertime.
Well, you're definitely living the stomping grounds right here for sure.
Yeah, riding powder, and then we got in some camping the week before last, so that was lovely. I love getting outdoors, so hiking and camping, and
that helps to be used to that kind of a lifestyle. Then when
you're
going
Africa,
down there,
I'm camping all the time. So sometimes I don't want to camp, but here
you're ready for some AC, right?
Here it's not
for sure.
And then there's they get a lot of head shops out here, so you gotta go shopping a lot.
Absolutely, most definitely. You consider yourself a night owl or an early bird?
Man, I love the night.
Do you?
I hate waking up. Like
Still,
I have to be up, and
but you don't have any kids too, so I always try to temper that because it seems to me like the ones that have kids, you're almost kind of forced into that morning lifestyle, and then it just takes over. But when you don't have to, then you can stay on the nighttime
and
routine.
You see, the not having the kids things ever. Probably dated like just a couple of girls in 40 years.
One or two.
That ever have had a child. And I love kids, by the way.
Yeah.
Love children. No. But it is definitely, hey, man, goes back to the mass population. See,
man.
Everything in
crowd
my life,
control,
I'm trying to control
He's not living there. He's not walking the walk. He's talking the talk.
No, so for me, that's kind of how that is.
What is one item under $100 that you could not live without? Your go-to item. And it could be for travel in Africa because you do that so extensively, or it could just be something that's just in general, that's something that, like your go-to item that maybe would be a little bit unique.
I mean, for my depression, it'd probably be my pen. No, I mean, in truthfulness, under $100, I would say, man, my toothbrush. I cannot stand not brushing my teeth.
Yeah,
I don't have the best teeth in the world. I just hate.
Oh, you got good teeth.
I gotta go have some mouth surgery.
You look good.
But no, so I gotta brush my teeth.
The
man.
toothbrush is
the
good. Now, do you do the regular or do you do the electric?
Oh, just the regular.
Just the regular old school.
I just that taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm breathing on people.
It's funny. Yeah, I like the hard bristles. Yeah. I do, man. I like that extra hard one, man. I don't know why.
That's awesome. And that's about it, man. I guess nothing I'm really tied to.
What about any weird habits or any odd things about you that's different compared to most people?
God, I don't know.
Something weird about Corey Lockman that the world does not know.
I don't know. I think and some people might disagree. My girlfriend would disagree. I'm very patient. I'm patient. I don't get overly frustrated with things, except for when I tore my hand and.
Well, I was going to say, doing what you're doing and dealing with the bureaucracies and everything over there, I'm sure that can be incredibly frustrating at times.
Well, the different languages.
And then just understanding all the different dialects, too, on top of that. Yeah, absolutely.
The anger that you see, I think those things, I think I'm patient. And I would also say that having a friendly attitude. I think I'm a pretty nice guy to get along with.
Definitely.
Maybe initially I can be a little bit weird, but who isn't weird?
Hey, we're all a little bit off, right?
Yeah.
So it makes us interesting.
But quirks, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a pretty
I'll have to ask your
awkward guy. I'm a
girlfriend
pretty
about that.
awkward guy. So.
I'll guarantee you she'll be able to tell me something good for sure.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I've
she'll
watched
get
this.
here before we
You'll
get
like
over
post this, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, "What? Are you kidding? Hang on, let me put here." McHugh will have a picture.
I'll start
Watson,
getting the quotes.
Watson will
Yeah.
type something. It'll be a nightmare.
All the comments will come
It's
flying
just-
in from that point.
Let's be honest. No one's going to watch me for an hour.
Yeah, well, hey, and let's be really honest. Nobody listens to this podcast anyway. So,
Oh,
hey,
come
we're
on,
all
dude.
good,
You're
man.
kidding.
We're all good. Speaking of which, so who do you think would be cool for this podcast? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Obviously, it's got to be somewhat realistic because there's only, I'm still working on getting my way up on the line.
If I could have, if I could have anyone, I pick some of my buddies from Africa just because I think they're so enlightening, and even their sense of religion, their sense of how they live their life and the different things they learned are very interesting.
Are they mostly Christian or Muslim, or what's the typical denomination?
Predominantly, it depends. Now,
there's areas.
It depends on each area.
Right.
Mostly going to be a Christian or a more just spiritual. In a lot of areas, there's a more Muslim population. They don't tend to do a lot of the animal welfare. I don't know. I don't want to stipulate that I know a lot about the Muslim religion to be able to state why.
And it could be just a simple matter of geographic.
Well, in wildlife conservation, there's just not a lot that work in there. There's a lot of Muslims in Africa. They just don't work in wildlife conservation.
Just not in that particular area, maybe, per se.
Cool. So, that would be great. My buddy, like I told you today, my buddy Chris Sturm, I think would be awesome. Just water rights and his family and his life. And
there's another Chris you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
Chris Watson.
Oh, Watson. Yeah, get my boy out there. I mean, the guy's a DJ. Who has a better life than any of us?
Between him and Sean McHugh, I think we could have a full-blown party on
I don't know if you'll get a word in. You'll ask one question.
Well, that would be great. I would just be able to hit record and
It'd be 1 hour of talking.
It'd be great, man. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're over there, what's your favorite thing to eat over in Africa? What's your go-to?
It's funny. The meat is 99% lean. They don't put a lot of things that we do.
Well, yeah, because a lot of it's wild game meat, and wild game meat is going to typically be very lean.
Even the game, but even corn and other products don't have a lot of growth hormones or anything like that. I think they're starting a lot more just because they've had droughts.
Right.
But I'll go there, I'll lose 10 pounds, the greatest thing in the world. Now they'll drink you under the table. They drink a lot there.
Really?
Interesting. South Africans do, especially the ranchers.
What's their go-to drink? Do they have a...
They love the winery region in South African's amazing, but they're all brandy and Coke.
Brandy and
listen
Coke.
to me, brandy and Coke, worst drink. Americans don't drink that. Only Afrikaners.
They love it, huh?
And it's like Coke headache all day long, sweet. It's like rum and Coke. It's brandy. My buddy from Africa, so he's our project manager. He comes in, he's our age. Love him, one of my best friends. He'd come over, goes to this Evan Casey, took him, we all went out to watch football, and he came over and he's like, I can't wait to see these Denver, Colorado. He's been to the States once.
Yeah.
And Evan takes him to this dive. Homeless dude's passed out at the front door. Another homeless guy's passed out at the bar. And Evan's like, I've always wanted to come here. And he goes, this looks like our bars.
This looks
back
like
home.
Africa.
I thought there was going to be beautiful women in America. And I was like, he's like, and then he looks at the bartender. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He looks at the bartender and he goes, I'll take a brandy and Coke. And she was like,
no, you won't.
no, you won't. You're in America. Because she heard his accent and he was like,
That's great, man.
Yeah, so,
that's awesome. That's too funny.
Yeah, so those guys I would definitely say interviewing.
Yeah, that'd be great. We are making some big plans, so who knows how things will play out here in the next year or two.
Well, I'm excited for you, man, and hearing the way you got what you're doing. It's an amazing adventure, man, and it's amazing how that happens to you. And I just love it.
It's been a wild ride, man. I got to tell you, I feel incredibly, incredibly blessed to be doing this, and like we were saying before, and I've said it on the podcast time and time again. Right now, the best part about the whole thing is just this reconnection that I've been getting to have with all these guys, with you, and I mean, just about all of my guests. We start every episode with, "Man, how long has it been?" That's a great place to be, and
well,
and
especially old friends, man.
Yeah,
we all hung out a little bit together in high school. And
it just goes to show you, you just kick yourself for not doing it more often, and you realize it's so easy to get caught up with life, and Lord knows we've got
with
so
kids,
much going on, and especially with the kids. But, man, when you make the time for this stuff, it creates those experiences. Those experiences create memories, and those memories are what stick with you. And that's what I'm trying to create with my kids, is create memorable experiences. And so the fact that I'm able to do this and create these experiences for myself and hopefully for a lot of other people, that's living the dream for me, man.
What's cool is they'll be able to watch this when you're gone.
Well, I don't know if that's gonna be cool or not. I'm actually terrified of that. Like the
Dad
it's
looks
out
so
there
not
in the
old
ethers.
there.
Yeah, like this stuff. Once it's out there for forever. You know. So.
Oh, good.
But,
now you're making me feel like hell for doing this.
But like I said, as long as nobody's listening, then it'll all eventually fade away. So it's all good. But so tell me about the future, man. 10 years from now, what does an ideal day look like for Corey Lockman?
10 years from now. Oh, God, man.
Where you at? What are you
I
doing?
get to wake up in a vast landscape in a remote part of this world, see animals and growth and my own growth, walk out into nature and know that it's still there.
Yeah.
That would be an ultimate goal. I'd love
That's
to say
beautiful.
this is a traveling 3 months out of the year overseas and to different places would be what I'm doing. And, I'm hoping that I'm not traveling as much because I'm hoping the situation has gotten better.
And not only that, but the technology as well is allowing you to have that freedom and flexibility.
Maybe win
as
the
well.
lotto. Hell, I don't know. I guess you got to play to win.
Yeah.
I do occasionally play, but that would be nice
Right,
too.
right,
Because
right,
then I just buy a bunch of land, put all the animals on there, and hopefully no one will touch it.
Be you and Ted Turner hanging out, man.
Hey, man, Ted's not
Loading
a
him
bad
up.
guy.
Oh, hey, I think he's brilliant, man. My go-to guy. He's one of the guys I want to get on this podcast.
Dude, he's helped out the wolf population extremely well.
He's done a lot of interesting things.
Now I got to get a bunch of guys in Boulder and wildlife conservation. I get you interviews
Hey,
now.
man, keep
rolling this wildlife.
Keep 'em coming. Normally I ask, what's the story that you want to be remembered for? But, that's it, though. You've answered that question to a T. What you're doing is a legacy, I think. And it's not just you. It's all of you guys. It's the team that you have. You guys are really putting together something that's going to make a difference for such a long amount of time, man. And that's,
God,
there's not many people that can say that. How about a bucket list item? What's a bucket list item for Corey Lockman? Since you've already got to travel so much and do a lot of amazing things. What's something that you want to do before you die?
Man, that's a good question. I've almost done a lot of the things.
I was going to say, you've knocked a lot of them out already.
I've always wanted to get down to Antarctica, which I know I'll have the opportunity. Just my job will probably end up taking me there, but wanted to see it. I've always wanted to see kind of the North and South Pole.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And that's more of just a bucket list of something that I've never seen in my life. Vast ice. I don't know why.
You're about that
so
vast open expanse type
It seems
of thing.
I have a friend.
You definitely need to go spend some time in Alaska, man, because that's some big country out there.
Well,
it gives you that feeling big time.
I have one of our volunteers. He did 15 years at McMurdo Station in Antarctica, and he tells me, and I just want to see it.
Yeah,
I want to go see it
in the
for
summertime,
like 5 seconds.
or in the non-winter season.
Vast ice before it's all gone. Yeah. Those are the things. You talked about hiking Kilimanjaro. I think for me, I've always wanted to do that. That would definitely, I'm in that area, and I just have not done it.
Well, we're going to be plotting and scheming on that one, because that's one for both of us.
I'm telling
we're
you,
going to be
fly
working
into
on
Kenya,
something.
we'll head over there, go to Amboseli, because I got to stop in there, hike that, and go down to South Africa.
I'm all about it, brother. Dude, we are going to make that happen, dude.
I'm down. I need a partner to climb it with.
Hey,
so that works
there you
out
go.
well.
That's perfect. I think we get a group together, man. We get the whole crew. We can make make a thing out of it. Wrapping it up, what did I not ask you about that you want to share with people? What should I have asked you that I didn't?
Man, you really hit the nail on the head with everything I was hoping to cover. If you want to learn more information, Wildlife Protection Solutions.
Yeah, go ahead and let's plug Instagram, YouTube, any of the social media or ways that people can be involved. And real quickly, mention again about how they can be involved in your virtual program, online access to the videos where they can participate and not just donate.
So, if you ever wanted to donate, your money will go in the right hands. All of our administrative costs are covered by our founding director, so our money goes directly in the field.
100% of your donations are going directly to those animals.
Yep. Let me back that up. There is some technology that has to be tested, so we'll buy certain hardware and test it that might not go out in the field. So I don't always want to say 100%.
But if you see the technology that you guys are using in the field, I mean, clearly that's
but employee
some of the
salaries,
best money spent, I think,
definitely.
for sure. I mean, what you guys are doing with that stuff.
Well, we don't want to cause risks, so we don't want to put things out there that can hurt animals and do things that might cause an unnecessary ecological problem. You know, go to wildlife, organizations, Wildlife Protection Solutions. You can find us, .org, and you can find us on all of the social media sites, Wildlife Protection Solutions.
Is that what your Instagram handle is as well?
Yeah,
Wildlife Protection Solutions?
We're set up on Amazon Smile. If you want to get on Amazon Smile and donate, you know, every little penny counts. So, you know, we'll do any of that. If you ever make it to Africa, South Africa, call me. Come have a look at our place.
And more importantly, like what I liked what you said earlier, take the time to participate. I mean, how cool is it that you can sit there on your computer and watch a live webcam in Africa?
You took my final speech.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So, do your thing. Because your point was beautiful, that people are always looking for, like they say, well, I can't make a difference, and what can I do? And the fact that they can sit at their computer at home and have a direct and meaningful impact on saving the life of one of these animals just by sitting there, just by doing your everyday routine. That doesn't take any effort or very little effort. It's something that's enjoyable. You might get to see some really cool animals in the process, and knowing that you're making a difference in the process. Even if you don't even see anything, knowing that span of time was covered, that somebody's eyes were on that, and that those animals were safe for that period of time, it's beautiful.
Well,
it didn't cost anybody anything.
Didn't have to do anything.
And you guys put all that together.
And educate yourself. Just get educated.
Check out these VR things. Because if you want to get educated,
whether that's this volunteer program, get out, learn more, do more. It's okay to pick up a piece of trash too. That's okay.
That's beautiful. One thing I teach my kids is try to pick up a piece of somebody else's trash every day, and when you do it, try to make sure somebody else sees you doing it.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Make a difference. You can do it.
One piece of trash matters.
It does.
It all does.
And thank you, man. You know, let me take a little moment. Thank you for getting in touch. Thank you for being a friend, and thank you for wanting to help.
Yeah.
You know, every voice and every ear is important, and the more it can get out there, the better impact
that's the goal, man.
we
Spread
as
the
humans
word.
can make.
Well, people like you and Jason, I mean, you guys are just doing some amazing work, and I think that the more we can spread that word and let people know they can make a difference, the better. So I appreciate it, man. It's been great to catch up, man. And we got some good times ahead, man. Good things happening.
Definitely, brother. Definitely. Good
appreciate
luck.
your time, brother.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. So what'd you think? What did I miss? Anything that you wanted to hear that I didn't cover? What do you want to know more about? Who would you like to see on the show? Hit us up on social media and tell me what you think. Check us out on iTunes and please leave a review. We're now on Patreon, and your support there helps let us know we're headed in the right direction. We have a lot of exciting new things coming, fascinating guests, and some of the craziest stories you won't believe. So stay in the loop and check out more great content by subscribing at our website, 8keystoGreat.com. Special thanks to my guests and all those of you living an extraordinary life. This is Nate G. We'll see you next week.